As we said, during the pandemic, many things changed, most for worse, but sometimes you can still see the silver lining during the pandemic, and that's why maybe people can start spending more time with their families. And also, many people say one of the major changes happened during the pandemic within the families, the shifting role of father. I don't know whether you feel that. So let's start with Professor Leonard. Did you feel like now daddies or fathers, they're playing different role within the family, especially during or after the pandemic? Is that the case in the States?
Well, yeah. Well, absolutely. Now that, especially here, and I know in China, in fact, too, the role of father has been changing for some time. A lot of that has to do, I believe, with the changing role of mothers, who are a much more important part of the workforce now, and providing safety and stability to the family. So fathers needed to take up that role more in order so that mothers can balance their lives as well. So you have two adults in the household balancing their lives between work and being a parent. Now the pandemic has just really accelerated things because of now, as you suggest, people spend more time with their children because everyone's home more. In New York, there's some issues about children going back to school. Some children have gone back to school. Some children are being homeschooled. So parents, and I'll focus in on fathers, have taken upon themselves actually being former teacher to their children. So not only do we have to work on our skills as fathers, but now we have to develop and work on our skills as teachers as well.
Right, exactly. Well, I agree with you. I think the role of fathers, are changing not only during the pandemic, actually it's been happening in the recent decade or even decades. Like, I would like to take myself as example because I'm not married, and of course I don't have kids, but like in terms of my growing up experience, I think my dad, he's a great dad. Now, of course, he's not watching this live, but I think that's in their generation, they're not playing a very big role because they are like the major breadwinner in the family. So they're really busy with their career. So usually we turn to mom, for everything. And only those few times when we turn to dad. But the first thing we ask is Dad, where's mom? I'm looking for mom, right? So this is how we grew up. My generation grew up. It's dad, they play a role, but not that a big role. But I think things are changing, especially in the recent 10 or 20 years. I don't know, Mr. Li, because you just said you're a young father, a young teacher with a lovely 8-year-old daughter. So is your daughter very close to you, especially compared with the relationship between you and your dad? Has that changed in any way?
Well, firstly, I have the same kind of experience like what you said. We have, very similar Chinese families. So it was quite like that. My father did everything, the tough work outside the family, and then my mom took almost all the housework. So that's quite the same. But for my generation, when I became a father, so I think I am more closer to my daughter than my dad was. I spent more time with my daughter, and then a lot more time than what my father spent with me. I think it's changed. It's a little bit different than what it was, than what I experienced for the last 30 years when I was a very young child, and it's quite different.
Right. So, Dr. Liu, you are not only a proud father, you're also the headmaster of a very famous school. And I believe you've been talking to many parents in the past months during the pandemic. So what kind of feedback did you get from the parents from your school, especially in terms of the changing role of the father? What kind of changes have you witnessed?
I think the trend is the fathers are more involved in teaching children. And also there are some fathers who are probably working at home, and not like my dad's time. The fathers were always outside the family, and maybe going back to the home about in a year once or twice. So many people for my father time, they were not with my mother sometimes. But for my time, when I was a father, I was with my son because I tried to be close to my son, not like my father, and so so I got a lot of time with my son, especially when he was liking to do something, put hands on something. So because I'm an experimental scientist, so I spend a lot of time to mend something. Make something with my son. So, for my son, I think I did quite well to put him into Camford University by influence him a lot, make myself a role model for him, and make myself also looking after family not. But compared with my wife, actually, I spend much less time to look after my children. So I think still in these days. Although the father are more involved in the raising the kids, but still the mother taking the main job for looking after the children. So I think in the future maybe we need more more change to involve the fathers to educating the kids. Why? Because I think for daughters, because I have two daughters. For daughters, I think they may like to in the future to marry the type of man like her father, but for sons maybe they want to be a type of man as his father. So father actually have important influence to children. So we should take the father's role as important as possible.